Hi, I'm Heinbach. It's good to have you back. Our little friend, the automaton, will come back in a second to illustrate a point that I'm making with this video. But for now, bye-bye. The idea for this video came from a conversation that I had with a fellow musician who just started out to become a composer. He asked me whether he should buy a Novation Summit or a Make Noise modular system. And I thought, okay, that's two very different systems. He also mentioned that he already had a lot of UREC, but really no keyboards. So I said, yeah, get a keyboard. Then he got kind of defensive and thought, but I just love the sound of Make Noise and what this does. To me, it seemed like he wanted to buy more modular, but was considering the Summit just to fulfill something. I don't know what. So I thought, let's take this back a step and go to the 2 rules that guide all of my gear purchases. And there's a third one, which I'll mention in the end, but that's more of an addendum. This is, of course, only my way of doing things. After 25 years of working with music and 15 years of doing it professionally, your mileage may vary. The first rule is joy. Will this be something that I'll use and have fun with? Not necessarily make me happy, but just enjoy it while I'm working with it. And there's 2 components to joy for me. And that's, I don't know, from Latin lessons that I had when I was in school. The Romans had the idea of prot esse et delectare. I probably bungled that pronunciation, but it means to advance and to delight. So the ideal thing that brings me joy is something that also advances me. For example, I love playing video games, such as Darkest Dungeon, but it's just for the moment. I don't get anything out of it that would in any form bring me further. When I play chess instead, I feel that my brain somehow is massaged with what I'm doing there. It's a much more involved process, so I feel this is like gymnastics for my brain, and it also connects me to a very rich history. And it's a game that, yeah, is more easily shared than Darkest Dungeon. Though, yeah, I still like that game.
Remind yourself that overconfidence is a slow and insidious killer.
The second rule is color. Will this enhance my palette? I think of my studio as something that is, yeah, basically like an easel and a palette of colors that a painter has. And I seek to have a rich palette where there's one of everything at least, and then I can use that to draw my music, basically. It's really, I see it that way. I visualize colors for each of these instruments around me. That means every gear purchase has to fit on the palette, and it has to make the palette richer. So I'm able to paint more vibrant sonic pictures. That is the second rule, color. Before I go into the third, let's show this on the example of this little automaton. How does this fit into my studio? Well, will this bring me joy? I think the joy is easily seen here. Playing this is just it's joyful to play. It's a silly instrument with a funny face that is actually very active, and if you practice it, you can play melodies, you can play a lot of stuff with it. You just have to practice it. It's the bigger version, by the way. The smaller one is horrible to play. This one, I would say, is a true instrument. The only definition for me of a true instrument is, will I be able to play it with other instruments? From the sheer point of joy, does this make me happy while I play it? That is already there. But does it already bring me further in any way? Well, it is an ear trainer, because there's no frets here. So you have to really... It is a unique way of playing something. You have a mouth that you can move, which acts as a filter. It's a very analog filter. It's just a mouth. And there's a little speaker inside. And then you've got the ribbon, which enables continuous control. And combining the two... is something where I start to listen very well, and then I start to think about how would I sing this. So it is a very musical approach to play this instrument, which already brings me further because it trains my ear, it makes me think about music, it is a beautiful learning process that excites me. So this hits both fun and advancement. But what about colors? How does this this noise enhance my color palette? That is because I do a lot of theater work, and this is an instrument that I can give to actors and they can play it and they can be it because it's like a puppet that you play. It becomes very quickly its own little person. This automaton has seen action. It was 60 times on stage in front of a bunch of kids because it was used in Hase and Schildkröte. There was a little duet where the actors played with two of these, and we had a lot of fun rehearsals, like just getting the notes right and then the expression, and it was always a very funny and beautiful moment for the kids to see these instruments play. Color does not only refer to the sound of an instrument, but also its application. This is something that's perfectly applicable for the role that I intended it to be used in theater. This scores full points in the color section. Now, does it fulfill the third rule? I'm doubtful, because the third rule is resale value. Because when I buy something, and if I don't like it, I want to be able to resell it. You can still get this for about 80 bucks new. So used value is probably not very high. With something this cheap, it's not that important, but there are other instruments where it gets very important. For example, studio gear. There are all these great names like API, Neve, Telefunken, Siemens, Neumann. Whatever you get from them, it will retain its value and you can probably resell it for a higher price. I know that's true for all of my analog synthesizers. I bought a Roland SH02 for the equivalent of 350 euros, and that is now worth twice as much, or triple even. Gear that is straight up cheaper copies of the original, it probably won't hold its market value. So that gear is usually only fine for the time that I use it, but when I want to upgrade, I'm basically making a loss. I learned this rule from German music producer Tobias Levin, whom I was working with in the studio in 2007. And I thought, but I'm never going to be able to afford something like an original Neve or an API or something. But that started my whole search for gear that is not as well known, but still has great quality. That is, for example, why I have GEFELL microphones in my studio and not Neumann microphones. Great microphones, sound fantastic, are available at a fraction of the cost of the Neumann microphones, if you go used. Or the baby-sized Brüel & Kjær 2204 sound level meter, which is basically a DPA, Danish Pro Audio microphone that you can get super cheap. I mean, it still is super cheap. I see them all the time for about 150 bucks. And try to get a DPA mic for that price. If I can't afford to buy the real thing, I go on these tangents which lead me down beautiful roads of discovery and exploration, instead of buying something that's cheaper, maybe like 90% as good, but won't hold its resale value in any way. It just comes to my mind how important that third rule became, because it's one of the driving forces of this channel to find exceptional, old and beautiful equipment that's also cheap. Again, this is only my experience and how I try to avoid gear acquisition syndrome and just hitting buy, because buying itself is a thing that is like a little joy button that you can press, but your mileage may vary. And if it does, please share it in the comments below. Why don't you and I make a bit of music? You can find this track and many more on my Patreon, and thanks to everybody who supports what I do there. You are the reason I can keep on making these videos. Yeah, that's it for today. I'll be seeing you in the next one. Bye.